So Jack Macy, we're on our main topic. He is at San Francisco Environment as its Commercial Zero Waste Senior Coordinator. He has more than 30 years of experience in developing and managing innovative composting, recycling, and other zero waste programs and policies at state and local level. He oversees the commercial sector in pursuing San Francisco's zero waste goal and helps with statewide policy and education through such organizations as CRRA's Cork, California Organics Recycling Council. This is the first time he's presented, so be nice to him on this topic. This is his first time on San Francisco's upgraded MRF and its expanded material recovery.
Thank you. It's great to see so many of you old new faces. Yep, this is our first time on this topic. And so I want to just give a little bit of an update on our MRF and collection program that have been in process for a while. See if I can get the right, there we go. So San Francisco's MRF, which was built and operated by Recology, our exclusive service provider, it was built and started operating in 2002 to respond to a single stream recycling program that was being rolled out citywide. And that program continued to get rolled out citywide, went to all sectors, and then over time became mandatory. And this MRF basically was for single stream, but it also had streams for commercial fiber-rich loads. And over time, we saw an increase in materials. We saw a change in composition. We saw smaller OCC. We saw more shredded paper. We saw more disposable plastics. Quantities kept increasing. And over time, residuals started to grow, and they went up to about 15% by around 2012. And so basically, we felt the need to be able to improve on this. And there was a secondary MRF, Titus Services in LA, has a secondary MRF run by Mike Centers. And they do kind of an R&D effort to take the residuals and see what can be recovered. And they were able to recover and market 60% of these residuals, because a lot of them are smaller and our system wasn't as efficient and was over capacity. So that was a good success, and based on that, they worked with Van Dyke to design an upgrade, and we had an option. Do we tear down the MRF and rebuild it, in which case where do we process stuff in the meantime, or can we graft it onto this existing system, existing 40,000 square feet of processing, and that's what was done. And so we basically have stuff that was done primarily on the front end and the back end and connecting that. And I'm just going to touch on a couple of these processing changes. Really basic, including a upfront drum feeder, which actually provides an even flow of material, because we had a bucket loader feeding that, and often we got a little bit too deep to be efficient sorting. And then that goes up into a long pre-sort line, kind of the standard for new MRFs. This is 70 feet long. It's stations for 14 sorters. And this allows better upfront recovery, removing the trash that we don't want, but then being able to recover items such as larger metals, clean wood, clean textiles if they're there. And then those vertical chutes were to take clean plastic, film plastic, if people would bundle that up in a bag no bigger than a basketball. So that's the front end line, and then that feeds into a new screen for OCC. We didn't have a dedicated OCC screen, and we saw that material stream growing over time and getting smaller. So we have a nice big screen for OCC, and that then recovers that fairly well and provides better separation for following two sets of two screens, basically, one for O and P and one for kind of mixed paper. Two different grades, a rough and a fine cut. And again, these were better designed, wider, higher throughput screens replacing the old ones. And then that basically connects to the existing system, which had two optical sorters that were added after the MRF was built for PET and HDPE, and then there's a manual sort line. But we needed to improve the back end. We wanted to be able to then take the residual and process it. So we actually added a glass cleaning system. The other one was inadequate to help remove a lot of that grit and fines and glass. And then we added two optical sorters. And this technology keeps improving over time. But the key lesson from the Titus MRF is how you present material to an optical sorter really determines so much of its effectiveness, and you've got to have stuff spread out, because anything covered is not going to get read, of course. And so we had an optical sorter that was added to help allow us to recover cartons, and then it was also mixed plastics, and then we had a last one which basically had a air curtain vacuum to pull off the kind of light paper stuff that would be covering material, and then we had a sort for 3 grades of plastics, and then for fiber, and then the rest for residual. And all this combined to improve the operation of the MRF significantly. We went from around 30 tons to 45, 50 tons per hour capacity. We reduced the residuals, and they would drop by more than half. And so this MRF completion was done around in the fall of 2016, and we saw residuals drop down around 6 or 7% until the fall of 2017. Anybody can think about what happened then? Well, we've just been hearing about that. And I'll get back to that. So now I want to just talk about what was happening kind of during this time on the collection front. We wanted to, in our quest to reduce trash and go towards zero waste, how can we improve on our collection system? We had the 3-stream collection system, commingled recyclables, all organics, and trash. So we did different pilots. We thought every other week was going to be the goal for it, or the most effective strategy. But we found that what was actually give us the biggest bang was a small bin, which was giving just a 10-gallon bin, the idea of reducing the trash volume significantly so that people wouldn't be wasting too much in that, and move stuff to where it should go in their composting and recycling. So we did a small bin pilot. We did an every other week pilot. We did a pay per set out. That started first. Pay per set out, basically, residents, these are single family and small multifamily units, they had an option of not setting out their trash on a given week and getting a 10% discount. They had an RFID tag on that. So we looked at all of these, and a lot of outreach we've done. There was control. Basically, we ended up with the small bin as the most effective for San Francisco. This is not necessarily true elsewhere, but in our kind of mix and density. So after we did that, we've been working with Recology about how can we move more material out of trash, and how can maybe we can clean up compost. I've been concerned for a long time about how the fact that we have been accepting some poly-coated paper products like cartons and paper cups in composting, and either I was going to make sure that we had it all fully compostable like PLA, but there was no PLA milk cartons, or we're going to find a way to move it in recycling. We work with a carton council, and they helped confirm that there were MRFs, international MRFs, that could not only take the cartons but recycle all 3, the 2 streams for the gable top and all 3 material types in the aseptic carton. So we were able to move the milk carton or the gable top into recycling. We were able to move the aseptic. You just heard how we had, in the MRF Upgrade, there's a dedicated optical pulling out. That's grade 52. So then what about, poly-coated products? Well, we worked with Recology and said, you're going to over 20 mills around Asia. Can they take, polyline paper? And we knew Seattle had been doing that for a while, and they said, well, as far as we know, the stuff's going to recycle. Mills don't necessarily want that, but if we were able to, the best information we'll get is that it was going to be recycled, most of it. And we decided that it's high quality, long virgin paper that's in that. That's actually better than composting when you have half the carbon going out in emissions. So we moved the paper cups, and if we're going to move the poly-coated paper cups, well, why not include ice cream and other cartons? Concern, of course, would be contamination. So the key was to really emphasize, please empty it and have it relatively clean. And then we also had all this film plastic, and we felt like we did pilots. Those pilots that I showed you, we allowed people to put film plastic in a bag and put it in the container, and that also worked well. So those were the changes, and the updated outreach materials, we kind of changed our approach to highlighting categories, and in the new materials, people know about newspapers, so we're emphasizing the new paper products and the plastics in terms of what can go recycling. We also emphasize new organization for composting, pulling out some of those products that we did. And then you'll notice in the bottom there we say irecycles.org. We created a dedicated website that had all this information, and allows you to do pull-down bars, including here highlighting what's new. So this new dedicated site, I think, kind of helps and is being promoted. I want to kind of close around the change in the program here, which basically we had this 3-system program. Default for residential has been 32 gallons each. Based on the pilot programs, we're in a 2-year rollout, and we're moving to this, larger recycling, because most of the volume is there, composting and smaller trash. Hard to see, but that's a 16-gallon trash. We're giving residents half the volume in trash. And the results so far are not too bad. 62,000 households, so we're, about a quarter of the way there to our 350,000, well, it's 200,000 households. But 30% are opting out. Not that bad. That means 70% are accepting it, 11% trash reduction, 12% recycling increase. And so the impact that we've had is on the national SOAR. That actually came down on Recology last fall, and we had inspectors came and set up, you're above the 1%, which is they were enforcing. So with the MRF upgrade, they've actually had to, we're taking advantage of the upgrade, but we're not getting all the results. We have to slow the upgrade, the processing down to 30 tons an hour for more QC. This has resulted in residuals going back up. The shredded paper that we have removed out of residuals are not being accepted in bales because inevitably they bring in some grit and fines. And we've had to, but this upgrade is allowing the MRF to better respond to meeting these challenges. And partly how they're going to do that is they're going to have to do another upgrade. Recology determined that they can add an optical to each fiber stream and add an AI robot on containers, and this will help significantly with the additional labor that they've reallocated, meet it. But what does this also mean? Well, one issue is processing, but we've been talking about the messaging and education. We need to do more education outreach. We're enforcing mandatory, we're ramping that up. And my final slide is, Recology is telling the public that we have a challenge in the markets and that businesses and the public need to step up. We not only need to get people to sort better, but we need to take more responsibility and think about what they're buying. And we're working on helping to reduce disposables, a lot of problems with that, and stay tuned on a new policy for reducing foodware disposables. Thank you.
Stay here, you gotta answer questions. Stay here,
All right.
stay here. You gotta answer questions.
All right,
We got
any questions?
one question from Sir David Browers.
Yeah.
Thank you. So Jack, when you said that you had some percentage of the residents opt out of the 16-gallon carts, what does that mean? What do they then use for garbage, and how does that affect them as customers?
Right. So this rollout, basically, they're just being given a 16-gallon. Their existing 32-gallon trash black container is being taken away, and they're given one that's half the size. And the law doesn't require them to use that, so if they say, I don't really want it, we're like, well, come on, give it a try, because 90% of what you're discarding should be in the blue and the green. No, I really don't want it. And so they can opt out of taking that and go back to their 32. The 32 now costs $40 after the last rate increase last year. The 64 blue, 32 green, and 16 black is the same price. So if they go back to a 32, they're paying more unless they keep the blue down to the smaller size.
We're running,
All right.
now we need to
Thank
keep
you.
moving ourselves along, moving right along, sorry. This is fascinating.